Part 84. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyubuletin Chigwa. Chapter 838. The eldest princess Ainaya caught up with Shenjian. Before Shenjian confessed to her, facing the current situation, she would not have chosen to stop him at all. Instead, she had allowed the fourth prince to step into a dangerous place and cause a stir. In the end, he was hunted down by the Eastern Territory and arrested, completely ruining the fight. A great situation to come down. But now, she hesitated. On the one hand, her husband is the eldest prince of this kingdom, and she should watch this brother-in-law go to the pit of fire for the sake of her husband. On the other hand, she was moved by Shenjian's various behaviors. I couldn't bear to see this man who just wanted to protect her silently suffer such a blow and be helpless. Think about it. Finally, the eldest princess decided to give a reminder. Your Highness the fourth prince, the place these two people took you to is a trap. If I guessed correctly, that place should be the center of political power in Winter City. There is a high probability that there will be ghosts and gods sitting there, and there will be more than one. Once it causes if there is any movement, it will be difficult to leave. She spoke her mind. He swept away the 2 counts in Shenjian's hands without leaving any trace. Little did I know. At this time, after hearing this call, the little nobleman and the beggar ghost also had their eyelids twitching and their pupils shrinking suddenly. He was as frightened as if he had seen a ghost. What? Are you the fourth prince? The one who unified the southern territory? The two said in unison. My mind went blank for a moment. He seemed puzzled as to why the fourth prince, who had only occupied Eagle City for a short time, appeared in the Eastern Territory instead of staying in the Southern Territory to reorganize his forces and strive to truly become the Lord of the Southern Territory as soon as possible. What was he thinking about? Do you think your advantage is too great and want to give other princes and princesses a chance to make a comeback? Thinking. Shenjian didn't look back, but waved his hands calmly. Sister-in-law, what are you talking about? I deal with problems in a reasonable manner, and I talk about the rules. I'm not looking for a fight. Why are you thinking about leaving? Princess. She opened her mouth. As dignified as she is, she feels like she has a lot of sexy things to say at this moment. Reason. Rule. The fist is the principle and the serrated sword is the rule, right? I've never seen these two things like this in all my life. On the other hand, in terms of lack of quality and lack of morality, you have become so perfect that everyone who comes here has to call you the patriarch. Seeing that Shenjian looked like no one could persuade him, the princess could only sigh with resentment. Although she had been mentally prepared, seeing this result still made her a little confused, wondering why His Highness the fourth prince was so radical. There are still more than 3 years left before the king contest trial ends, and she really doesn't understand where the other party came from with his radical idea of taking over the Eastern Territory tomorrow, the Western Territory the day after tomorrow, and the Northern Territory the day after tomorrow. At the same time, the 2 earls being carried by Shenjian were breaking out in cold sweat. He glanced at the eldest princess and then at Shenjian. Sister-in-law. Since Shenjian is the fourth prince, the only person he can call sister-in-law is the wife of the second prince or the eldest prince. The second prince is in the east. They have seen his princess before, but she definitely doesn't look like this. In other words, this is the eldest prince's princess. Ken. They had clearly seen the fourth prince walking with this woman in his arms, and the woman did not resist, acting like a loving couple. If this were the eldest princess, wouldn't it be his? Think of this possibility. The 2 earls even shrank their necks. Yet, the fourth prince must be too courageous. How dare you put the hat on the head of the eldest prince? Fortunately or unfortunately, they witnessed it with their own eyes. At this time, they really want to deafen their ears and blind their eyes, pretending that nothing has happened. After all, this thing is too big. Definitely a royal scandal. Once exposed, they didn't know whether the fourth prince would be accused by thousands of people, but they knew that their lives were now in Shen Jian's hands. If it didn't matter, they would finish it today. Gan. Fourth prince, we really have eyes that cannot recognize 2 to 5 or 8,000 people, and we have eyes that cannot recognize one dragon. The female companion around you is right. We do have evil intentions. The place where we are taking you, Your Highness, is indeed a severe winter in the central area of the city. Not only do 7 directors live there, 3 of them are indeed ghosts and gods, but the Duke of the East is also there, with 4 ghosts and gods waiting for you. The little nobleman stammered. They didn't dare to name the princess's identity, leaving a tacit understanding to each other. They hoped to use this incident to reach reconciliation with the fourth prince. They didn't care about what the fourth prince had just done, and they would not report the fourth prince's whereabouts to the Freemasonry. In exchange, the fourth prince would let them go and promise not to cause trouble for them because they caught the eldest princess having an affair. Certainly. They could also bring this to light, but what would be the benefit of doing so? Besides giving the fourth prince the reputation of having an adulterous sister-in-law and bad character, what other punishment could there be? On the contrary, once exposed, they will bear revenge from the fourth prince and the southern border. Even if they are earls, they will not be able to get any better. Oh! Shen Jian is neither salty nor bland. The little nobleman was stunned. Oh! You are an egg. We have all told you clearly that this is a trap. Just follow the steps and go down. Oh, what do you mean? Not willing? Those are 4 ghosts and gods. Are you so cute that you still plan to break in? Too stubborn. Iron-headed boy, this is it? Your Highness, the fourth prince, what do you mean? You're here, let's take care of it by the way, Shen Jian said casually. The 3 of them were stunned. You've come, are you okay? This reason is simply impeccable. At the same time, in a towering castle. This is the center of power in Winter City, and it is also the headquarters of the Eastern Noble Freemasonry. Most of the 10 directors who are responsible for all decisions in the East Territory are located here and handle daily affairs. If they need to vote and discuss, they can handle it as quickly as possible. At this time, in a conference room, a private discussion is taking place. There were a total of 6 directors present at the round table. 3 earls, 3 marquises. 3 top ghost kings, 3 ghosts and gods who are infinitely close to ghosts and gods. Marquis Jinyin, who was wearing a honeysuckle badge on his chest, said, "What do you think about the strategy against the southern border proposed by the second prince a few days ago?" A lion marquis with a rough face and a lion-like hairstyle slapped the table and roared, "What do you think?" "I agree. Since the second prince was chosen to be in our eastern border, his performance in the past 2 years is also remarkable. Why not please fully support the second prince? With the size of our eastern territory, we may not be able to catch up." Innocent Marquis Payne, who was wearing a mage robe and a mage hat, said coldly, "Everyone can talk verbally. Once this decision is passed, it means that we have to send troops. If the fourth prince is stubborn, choose to take if the southern territory fights with us, the eastern territory will definitely not be happy, and I heard that the fourth prince has a weird supernatural weapon in his hand. Even an ordinary white-clothed level ghost can kill the top ghost king with the weapon. Then what do you think we should do? Reject the decision? In that case, if the second prince holds a grudge against us and sits on the throne, the eastern territory will not be much better." Marquis Angry Lion shouted. "Confrontation. Idiot." Marquis Payne said calmly, "You are a ghost after all. Can you have some basic thinking skills? In this world, there is not only whether to follow or not to follow. Even if you want to follow, the second prince must first show his own value and follow-up commitment. You. At the meeting. Full of gunpowder. The other three earls wiped the non-existent cold sweat on their foreheads. Even if they are directors, there are differences. Someone like Count Ren, who is withdrawn and does not live in the Masonic headquarters, has the weakest right to speak. And the three earls like them have the right to speak second only to the Marquis and the Duke. But when the three Marquises of Ghosts and Gods were arguing, they were also unable to intervene. They could only make their own judgments during the final decision-making vote. At this time, one of the red-haired earls suddenly caught a glimpse from the corner of his eye. The door of the conference room seemed to be pushed open. In the gap, a scarlet ghost eye emerged. He was staring inside. The ghost eye was moving around, full of the color of deathly silence. What the hell? The red-haired earl suddenly stood up. Look again. The door to the conference room was closed at all, leaving no gap. This moment, the red-haired earl felt a chill in his heart. He was sure that he was not dazzled, nor did he see anything wrong. Just now, the door to the conference room was really pushed open, and there was a scarlet ghost eye peering into everything here. What's wrong? The earl next to him said strangely. Didn't you notice just now? The door to the conference room was pushed open, and there was a ghost eye staring at this place. The red-haired earl pointed at the door, looking a little nervous. What kind of joke are you talking about? There are ghost eyes peeping here? The three Marquis didn't notice it, but you saw it? Are you dazzled? This is the central meeting area. There are ghost knights patrolling outside. How could there be an intruder? Hear the words. Marquis of Gold and Silver, Marquis of Raging Lion, and Marquis of Pain also frowned. Are there ghost eyes peeping? How can this be? They didn't notice anything just now. If one person could be negligent, then 2 or 3 people didn't notice it. There is only one possibility: it didn't happen at all. No way, I just saw it. Seeing that no one believed it, the red-haired earl became even more nervous. There was already a trace of horror in his eyes. Among the 6 people present, he was the only one who noticed that not even the 3 marquises noticed anything unusual. Could it be that he was really dazzled? But the look cast by those dead, grey ghost eyes just now made him still feel a little nervous. It doesn't feel like a hallucination at all. Then, the red-haired count stood up. Come to the door. Relying on the 3 ghosts and gods behind him, he pushed open the door of the conference room. Outside. Nothing at all. It was pitch black. Look, let me just say that you are dazzled. Don't do bad things and don't be afraid of ghosts knocking on your door. One of the earls said angrily. The red-haired earl glanced outside a few times and began to suspect ghosts. He is a majestic being who is infinitely close to ghosts and gods, but he is actually dazzled. With this thought, he was just about to close the door. In the dark, a big hand stretched out. Drag him into the boundless darkness. Ah! Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Buletin Chigwa. Chapter 839. Ah! As the red-haired earl let out a shrill scream, everyone saw that outside the dark conference room, a big hand suddenly stretched out and pulled the red-haired earl into the boundless darkness. On that arm, 8 scarlet eyes were spinning around. This moment, the whole place was dead silent. The 5 directors present were all stunned. Then his expression changed drastically. His eyes were full of horror. Outside the conference room, there really was a scarlet ghost eye, and in the blink of an eye, it dragged away a being that was infinitely close to a ghost and god, without encountering any obstacles during the whole process. How is this possible? This is the center of Winter City, and the conference room they are in is the core of the core. There are ghost knights patrolling outside all year round. Even ghosts and gods cannot sneak in quietly. What's more, the most powerful nobles in the East are here. If someone really sneaks in here, that will be the beginning of the opponent's nightmare. But now, under the watchful eyes of the three great ghosts and gods, a count just disappeared. More importantly, no one saw anything unusual. This is so scary. Impossible, how is this possible? Marquis Raging Lion was the first to speak out, unable to hide the shock in his words. The Marquis of Gold and Silver also looked solemn, and even a ghost couldn't help but shudder at this moment. It was ridiculous to drag an earl away under their noses without them noticing anything was wrong. It's almost as scary as a ghost story. Ghost realm, we are pulled into other people's ghost realm. Marquis Payne said coldly. At this time, the 5 directors in the conference room realized belatedly that it was pitch dark outside and it was not a normal noontime at all. The only thing that can cause this is the ghost realm. Only. Who on earth has the ability to create a ghost realm where even ghosts and gods cannot detect any flaws? Grand Duke of the East? No. Not the Duke. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Realm is only at the level of ghosts and gods. Although he is close to the threshold of the world-destroying level ghosts and gods, he is only close after all. He is still far away from the real world-destroying level ghosts and gods, and he cannot achieve what he is doing now. For a while, there is an atmosphere of fear. Alarm bells rang in the hearts of the 5 directors. Terrifying supernatural fluctuations spread out. The surging yin qi caused the temperature of the entire conference room to drop to freezing point. The next second, the 2 earls in the field suddenly realized that something was wrong under their feet. Look down. Their shadows rippled, and 2 big hands stretched out from their shadows, grabbing their ankles respectively. With a fierce pull, a huge force came, dragging their bodies and sinking into their home. In the shadow, it sinks slowly like a sticky swamp. Ah! Help! Help me, my 3 lords, please save me. The scalps of the 2 earls exploded. Screaming and struggling. But it didn't stop the sinking trend at all. He could only claw at the ground with a horrified face. In despair, he watched his head sink into the shadow little by little. Just less than 3 seconds. Where the 2 counts stood, there were only claw marks scratching the ground. See this scene. The 3 Marquis were also frightened. My scalp felt numb. They are ghosts, and even more so legendary ghosts and gods, beings who stand at the pinnacle of this kingdom and continent. But now, they only have one thought left in their hearts. Mad, damn it. If the red-haired earl was dragged away before, it could be explained that they did not react, but this time the other party dragged the 2 earls into the shadows in front of them. They just watched helplessly but were unable to do anything. Yes. They took action. On the way of the other party pulling the 2 counts into the shadow, they had already used supernatural means to try to curse the other party and follow the medium to kill the source, but the effect was almost ineffective. The owners of these 2 big hands seemed not to be affected by the supernatural, and they resisted their supernatural attacks and dragged the people away. This feeling of powerlessness makes them unbelievable. In the conference room, the atmosphere became quieter and quieter. So quiet that you can even hear your heartbeat. Whether it was the Marquis of Gold and Silver, the Marquis of the Raging Lion, or the Marquis of Pain, they all heard their hearts beat like war drums, and ghost blood filled their bodies. However, even so, they still felt that their hands and feet were cold. The chill started from the feet and went up to the sky. At this time, no, we can't stay here any longer. Break his ghost realm and escape first. The impatient Marquis of Raging Lion was the first to be unable to bear the terrifying pressure. He opened the window, let the ghost realm wrap around him, and jumped out. This is the 9th floor. Jumping down is not a big problem. The Marquis of the Raging Lion also has a very simple mind. The ghost realm is limited in scope. As long as you escape this range, the ghost realm will dissipate on its own. The purpose of wrapping oneself in ghost realm is to not get lost in the various illusions created by other people's ghost realms. A few seconds later, no movement was seen. Marquis Jinyan was also anxious. You definitely can't stay in this conference room, it's the source of danger. The Marquis of the Raging Lion has not made any movement, let alone screams, and ghost howls have been heard. He feels that this approach is correct. He said in a frightened tone, "Marquis Payne, the Raging Lion guy has already escaped. If we don't hurry up, it will be difficult for us to escape again when this ghost thing reacts. Do you feel that there seems to be an invisible ghost eye peering into everything in this conference room?" said. The Marquis of Gold and Silver also stood by the window and jumped down. The other side. Marquis Payne, who was wearing a mage's robe, also felt a chill. He glanced around the empty conference room and felt that there was something dirty in this conference room. He felt very nervous when he stayed here. Then, he also followed the example of the Raging Lion Marquis, wrapped himself in Ghost Realm, and jumped from the conference room on the 9th floor. A howling hurricane blew in. The gusts of biting wind also gave him a flash of inspiration, and he thought of a detail that was horrifying to think about. The Marquis of the Furious Lion is an impatient person. To put it mildly, he is simply reckless. If the other party really escapes from this ghost realm, the first thing they will do is to attack and try to break this ghost realm. No matter how bad it is, he will use ghost-level supernatural powers to find an escape point. But until now, he didn't notice any supernatural fluctuations in this space. This shows that not only did the Marquis of the Furious Lion not escape, but he might even have suffered a great terror and was instantly suppressed, unable to even use his supernatural powers. Think of this. Marquis Payne's expression froze. The next second, his feet were on hard ground. The ground is black. Not some supernatural visual influence, but the land is just black. Black soil covers the place. It looked like I was in purgatory. It's full of hellscapes. A furious lion? Gold and silver? Marquis Payne shouted as he ran. The gloomy voice echoed in this uninhabited black land, which seemed extremely desolate. Weird and penetrating. Even Marquis Payne, who was a ghost, could not help but feel extreme fear in his heart. Sudden. He stopped. In front of two stone statues came into view. The stone statue was buried in black soil and rooted deep into the ground. This moment, Marquis Payne was completely frightened. Because these two stone statues are the Marquis of the Raging Lion and the Marquis of Gold and Silver. The two looked horrified. Keep running. It looked like the black soil came to life, burying the two of them bit by bit. Even ghosts and gods cannot escape this kind of burial. Marquis Payne was completely devastated. Even the ghosts and gods can't escape from the ghost world. Where can he find the capital to escape? The source ghost of this ghost realm is definitely a being that is so terrifying that they cannot imagine it. He suspected that it was the legendary world-destroying ghost and god. Except for ghosts of this level, no one can suppress three ghosts and gods at once. Just thinking about it, Marquis Payne found that the black soil under his feet suddenly came to life, sinking his feet into it. In an instant, he was suppressed. Completely unreasonable and comprehensive suppression. He didn't even have a chance to use his supernatural power. At this moment, he finally knew why that stupid guy, Marquis of Furious Lion, didn't fight back before his death. Under the suppression of the black soil, he was not even allowed to fight back before his death. With this thought, black soil enveloped him. Consciousness fell into silence. At the same time, Convention Center City. In the conference room on the 9th floor. The eldest princess, the little aristocratic man, and the beggar ghost who were in the conference room from the beginning all opened their mouths. Their faces were very wonderful, and they looked completely dumbfounded. From the moment the red-haired earl was dragged away, they entered the conference room under the influence of the ghost realm and witnessed the fourth prince's astonishing operations throughout. Be good. What did the fourth prince do before? His main profession is prince. His secondary profession is fear-maker. Subconsciously, they looked at the three marquis who jumped down from the 9th floor and were buried in the garden, and then looked at the three earls with frightened faces, and couldn't help but swallow their saliva. The young aristocratic man took a breath of cold air. The fourth prince, do you always deal with problems like this? Why do I feel that the fourth prince is like the master of the Eastern Territory, teasing people from outside here? The beggar ghost said sincerely, fortunately, my specialty is pretending to be dead, otherwise which ghost can withstand such a scare? Midnight Terror is not starring the fourth prince, so I won't watch it. Princess. Her eyes fluttered. Those emerald eyes bloomed with dazzling light. She admitted that she underestimated the fourth prince. Shen Jian used facts to prove that the so-called siege by ghosts and gods was a joke. Surrounding and killing does not refer to the nobles of the eastern region besieging and killing the fourth prince, but the fourth prince alone besieging and killing all the directors. The purpose of coming has been fully achieved, to dissuade the nobles of the Eastern Territory from targeting the Southern Territory. Except for the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory, all 10 directors of the Eastern Territory noble Freemasonry have been killed by Shen Jian, and I am afraid that they all have been left with a psychological shadow. In this situation, as long as Shen Jian does not allow it, the decision on the southern border will not be passed. After all involved have been arrested? Certainly. She also knew that Shen Jian's purpose was far beyond that. It was only by the way that the Eastern Territory gave up targeting the Southern Territory. What the fourth prince really wanted was to take over everything in the Eastern Territory just like he took over the Southern Territory. And now, the fourth prince has succeeded. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Buletin Chigua. Chapter 840. Dark, cold, suffocating. Marquis Payne only felt that he was sinking into the endless sea. His consciousness was swept by endless darkness, his thoughts were intermittent, and he could not connect them into a line at all. He knew that this was a temporary sleep. Compared to being in a state of death, he still retains a trace of aura in this state, but in fact it is no different from a real state of death. When he opened his eyes again, he was confused. Especially when the environment in front of him was still in the conference room on the 9th floor, and the three earls who had been dragged away, the Marquis of the Furious Lion, and the Marquis of Gold and Silver were sitting next to him. He became even more confused. Until a voice sounded. Yes, you are the most qualified among these nobles. Marquis Payne looked. I saw a man with black hair, black eyes, and a strange smile on his face staring at him from the head seat of the conference room. Standing beside him was a stunning female ghost. In an instant, Marquis Payne trembled. This person is the source ghost of the previous ghost realm. It was the group that was responsible for killing 6 of them. Suspected to be the legendary world-destroying ghost and god. Think of this. His pupils shrank suddenly. It was obvious that there was only a few meters between the two of them, and they could reach out and touch each other, and cast a magic spell to kill them, but at that moment, he seemed to feel that there was a gap between them, like heaven and earth. Like, out of reach. He tried hard to lift his hand, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds and he couldn't lift it. Payne knew that he was afraid inside. I was so afraid of this man that I didn't even dare to think about resisting. Because he knew that once he took action, he would probably break the current situation and fall into the boundless fear before, helplessly watching himself being ruthlessly suppressed. At this time, the rest of the people present also woke up. Like a drowning person, struggling to breathe. What's the situation? I'm not dead. Is this horse riding an illusion? Are you kidding me? Which ghost realm can be so real that it can destroy us all? All the counts and the marquis said in horror. Now, regardless of their identity, status, or strength, they all looked like ordinary people, with faces full of fear of the unknown. In the most layman's terms, damn it. Okay, it's our first meeting. It's just a meeting gift. I hope you all like this surprise. On the first seat, Shen Jian waved his hand. Attracted everyone's attention. Marquis Payne. Ghosts. What a gift from God. You call creating fear, despair, and a sense of powerlessness a surprise? I'm shocked you MMP. Surprises don't have to be down to earth, but don't be down to hell either. So hellish. All the nobles stared angrily. My heart, liver, and lungs are all going to explode. At this time, the most angry red-haired earl once again spotted the little aristocratic man and the beggar squatting under the conference room, with his head shrunk, as if he didn't dare to see anyone. Earl Morgan? Count Jarov? Why are you squatting on the ground? Hear sounds. Only then did the others realize that two of their colleagues were squatting under the front seat. In other words, in addition to Earl Wren and the Grand Duke of the East, all the directors of the East Noble Freemasonry have gathered here. And it seems, they all seem to have been tortured to varying degrees. Especially Earl Morgan and Earl Jarov, who were squatting on the ground. They were beaten so badly that they didn't even dare to raise their heads. Is this because they were afraid that they would see how miserable they were? Damn it, they beat their colleagues like this. Damn it. Ignore them. Maybe they feel too embarrassed to see you. After all, I can come here because of their great efforts. If they hadn't explained it, I wouldn't have known that you were discussing the meeting on the 9th floor. Shen Jian smiled sincerely. He patted the two people squatting on the ground. The tone was full of praise. Marquis Payne? Raging Lion, Marquis of Gold and Silver? 3 earls. All 6 people were stunned. Then his eyes turned red. Grass. It turns out you were the ones who led the Imperial Army here. Why don't you just be beaten to death? Dead Taoist friends are still poor Taoists, you are really doing harm to others and not benefiting yourself. If it weren't for the wrong occasion, it would be so high and low that you would see what the roar of an angry ghost is. The other side. Earl Morgan and Earl Jarov were squatting on the ground, their heads lowered. Want to cry but no tears. Who the hell would know that this 4th prince is so perverted that he can catch you all in one fell swoop? If we had known earlier, we would not have dared to touch porcelain at that time. At the same time, after a burst of incompetent rage, Marquis Payne withdrew his hateful gaze. Then he put it on Shen Jian and said fearfully, "This, sir, what do you want to do when you come to our members of the Noble Freemasonry? If there is anything we can do, we will definitely do it. It's good to have a bright mind, so I'll just say it." Shen Jian nodded with satisfaction. "Kneel down and sing surrender." Marquis Payne. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly. There is no need to be so straightforward. After all, we are also a group of nobles with the highest status in the Eastern Territory. You are too insulting. Just thinking about it? Shen Jian had already continued, convene a board of directors meeting tomorrow to kick out the 2nd prince and drive him out of the Eastern Territory, and then announce his unconditional support for the Southern Territory and join me. Who is in favor? Who is against it? Said. Shen Jian stood up. His originally black hair and eyes turned golden in an instant. A pair of never-extinguishing golden eyes casually glanced at the nobles in the conference room, their eyes full of solemnity. His gaze was so sharp that even the two earls squatting on the ground noticed something. They raised their heads sharply and then lowered them quickly. There was a deathly silence on the field. Especially the three earls and three marquises sitting in the seats, their eyes widened in disbelief. My mind goes blank. This is, the fourth prince? Their reaction was the same as that of Earl Wren and Earl Morgan, who showed incomprehension to the fourth prince's appearance in the east. Certainly. This is no longer the point. The key now is that the fourth prince not only sneaked into the east without anyone noticing, but also captured 8 of the 10 directors and even forced them to make a decision, whether to support the second prince or the fourth prince. This is so dreamy. If the Eastern Territory chooses to support the fourth prince today, wouldn't it ensure victory in the king's trial in advance? Since ancient times, the royal family of the Eli Empire has never had the miracle of having an heir to unify the two realms. The fourth prince may become the first. Think of this. All the directors, headed by Marquis Payne, were trembling violently. In a daze, they realized that they had reached a turning point in history. Their attitude determines whether the fourth prince can leave his name in history. Immediately, Marquis Payne questioned, "Fourth prince, what about objection? What about approval?" Shen Jian glanced at him and grinned, "If you agree, you will become my subordinate. I will take over the entire Eastern Territory. Your treatment will be the same as that of the nobles in the Southern Territory. As for the objection, well, I don't mind replacing you with someone more sensible in the Eastern Territory director." Marquis Payne? He was stunned. "Ah. If you agree, you will be included, and you will have an ancestor above your head. If you oppose, you will be accepted. Damn it. This is different from what I thought. Shouldn't cooperation be a win-win situation? We promised to help you kick out the second prince and support you instead. Shouldn't you promise your own conditions, such as raising our title to a higher level or giving us more fiefs after inheriting the throne? We see no benefit at all from your conditions. When you say that we support you unconditionally, do you mean that we should give up our dignity and power to kneel down and lick you? Why is your face so big? Even the king would not dare to say this. We are talking. If you want to make a wish, go to church. Fourth prince, is this your condition?" The words have not yet finished. Shen Jian had already interrupted, "Get it clear, this is a democratic notice, not a discussion with you. Who wants to discuss? I'll discuss it with someone else." Gan. You are really democratic, just a little, but not much. See this. All the directors looked at each other. Want to go crazy? But recalling the fear and powerlessness they felt before, they desperately discovered that they had no room to refuse Shen Jian. The fourth prince's meaning was already very obvious. He is not afraid of opposition. If someone dares to oppose, he will replace him with someone he dares to do. In this situation, who dares to be the first person? Even the most impatient Marquis of Furious Lion lowered his head and remained silent. Apparently, everyone knows that when there is a clear gap in strength, all opposition is in vain. All they can do is accept Shen Jian's conditions, humiliatingly handing over control of the Eastern Territory. For a long time, no one said anything anymore. Shen Jian didn't mind either, with a warm smile on his face. "Very good, it seems that everyone knows that destiny is mine. If this is the case, then we are in the same team," said. Shen Jian took out 8 crosses from his body. One by one, the solid beams of light were integrated into it. "This is a token. Wearing it means you are one of our own. As long as you don't take it off, nothing will happen. What will happen if I take it off? Then I can only congratulate you on the gift package of death. What the hell, it's really used to force them to self-destruct. Too bad. I want to cry but have no tears. A group of directors took the cross from Shen Jian's hand and wore it around their necks. They knew that this pirate ship could no longer get off, and they had only one way to go. Then Marquis Payne opened his mouth and said, "Your Highness, the fourth prince, although the East Territory is decided by our 10 directors, the most powerful one is the Grand Duke of the East Territory. He has a veto power. The second prince is also actively working with the Grand Duke during this period. The public transportation is good and the effect is remarkable, and the Grand Duke seems to be leaning towards the second prince. If the Grand Duke really decides to support the second prince, then it will be very difficult for us to kick him out. His meaning is obvious, brother, you can also go and play a midnight horror theater for the Grand Duke to make him change his stance. If you don't mind, we want to watch." After listening, Shen Jian gave him a look full of disgust. Huang is in my favor, what's the use of his opposition? Also, take the right path and don't think about conspiracies all day long. Marquis Payne. Mad, when the word righteousness comes out of your mouth, why does it feel so wrong? Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 841. Come out of the conference room. A simple smile like an old farmer showed on Shen Jian's face. Behind him were a group of 8 directors who looked like dead parents. Until Shen Jian left, this group of Eastern nobles did not come out of their trance, but the wooden cross hanging around their necks felt so real. They knew that they had boarded a pirate ship and signed an unequal oral treaty that was humiliating and humiliating. He is destined to be bound to the fourth prince in this life. Think of this. 6 of the directors immediately laid their eyes on Earl Morgan and Earl Jarrett, who were squatting on the ground, their grim faces full of resentment. Mad. It was these 2 damned souls who actually led the Japs here. As a result, they experienced an unforgettable midnight terror and were completely embarrassed. This revenge must be avenged. The red-haired Earl closed the door of the conference room sadly. Ah! A ghost has appeared. The other side. Shen Jian returned to Earl Ren's manor. With the other party's expression full of resentment and daring to express his anger, he moved into the largest castle in the manor and waited for the board of directors meeting to be held tomorrow to formally confirm his dominance in the east. Shen Jian is satisfied with this rate of progress. According to this progress, after tomorrow, the southern and eastern territories will be completely in his hands, and the second prince will soon become the first royal heir to be eliminated due to the loss of territory. This is the first, but not the last. His goal is to eliminate everyone, occupy the 4 realms, and end the king trial ahead of schedule. Only in this way can he obtain the half of Luo Fengtian's authority in the hands of the Eli Empire royal family in a short period of time. Shen Jian's heart couldn't help but tremble when he thought about the second authority of Luo Fengtian that was about to be reclaimed. The unlocking condition for Azura Path, one of the 6 paths of reincarnation, is to recover 3 complete Luo Fengtian permissions. At present, he has recovered the Zhouchuan Heavenly Palace, Qingguo, Taisha Liangshi Zongtian Palace, Entertainment City, and Luo Fengtian, leaving only the last Zongfei Kailing Heavenly Palace, Ila Empire, authority. You can successfully unlock the Azura Path. The unlocking of the 6 paths of reincarnation must be related to the legendary Emperor Fengdu. He hoped that the system reward would be the status of Emperor Fengdu. In this case, he is the legitimate lord of the underworld. There will be no higher being in the world than him. Certainly. In the underworld system, he merged with the 10 palaces of Yama, and to a certain extent, he was considered the real master of the underworld. However, without the most important status of Emperor Fengdu, his name was always unfair. He wanted to complete this. It is necessary to reclaim Luo Fengtian's authority here. Shen Jian narrowed his eyes. My mind is racing. At this time, Shen Jian noticed that Princess Ainiya rubbed her temples. There was a hint of fatigue in those striking emerald eyes. Shen Jian frowned slightly. It belongs to the professional ability of famous doctors and is activated by disease insight. There was a hint of thoughtfulness in his eyes. Think about it. Shen Jian stepped forward and said with concern. Sister-in-law, are you feeling uncomfortable? It's okay, it's just overuse of supernatural influence. Just take a nap and you'll be fine. But fourth prince, I have to remind you that in the conference room just now, none of the 8 directors was sincere, and 8 out of 10 words they said were the sentence is false. Her tone was filled with concern. As a top ghost king, it is very difficult for her to use supernatural effects on ghosts and gods with a higher level of terror than her, especially when it is necessary to distinguish which words of these people are true and which words are false, which is even more labor-intensive. And the result was beyond her expectation. These 8 directors basically didn't tell the truth. Even joining the 4 princes lineup is a lie. This was the first time she encountered a situation like this. Hear this. Shen Jian was startled. He laughed. Why are you laughing? This is a very serious issue. If we don't handle it well, they may turn against you tomorrow. The eldest princess was extremely angry. He stretched out his foot and kicked Shen Jian lightly. She worked so hard for this brother-in-law, and he was actually smiling. Sister-in-law, it turns out that this is what you are thinking about. Even without your supernatural power, I can still tell that these people are not sincere. Don't forget, no matter what, the essence of this matter is coercion. As the powerful people in the East, how can the largest noble be really willing to accept my proposal and become my vassal? Then you can leave with peace of mind. You don't need to watch them. No need. The moment they verbally agreed, the matter was a foregone conclusion. Regardless of whether they accept it or not, they can only obediently become mine. Old God Shen Jian said. The nobles in the southern border also want to resist me now. The reason why they didn't resist is just for one reason. They are afraid of me, and so are the nobles in the eastern border. Sister-in-law, you have to know that the reason why I was able to occupy the southern territory and force the eastern territory directors to accept my proposal was based on my ability to crush them, not on my so-called character, status, or reputation. Speaking of this, Shen Jian's tone was faint. Hear the words. The eldest princess's heart trembled. He stared blankly at the confident and mysterious uncle in front of him. Compared with her husband, the eldest prince, the 4th prince in front of her was completely on the other extreme. Her husband was gentle and polite, and maintained a humble attitude all year round. He had an excellent reputation in the kingdom, attracting many nobles to rush to join him. The 4th prince is unruly, paranoid, high profile, and has an extremely bad temper. He enjoys playing tricks on others, is very public, and has countless enemies. Under normal circumstances, she would try to stay away from people with this kind of temperament. Although she didn't dislike them, she wouldn't take the initiative to approach them. But Shen Jian is an exception. Ultimately, perhaps it was the realness that made her feel more relaxed to get along with him. Even her husband couldn't do this. In front of Shen Jian, she didn't need to distinguish which words were true and which words were false, while her husband was half truthful and half false to her. With comparison, she realized how easy it was for her to get along with Shen Jian. Pity. The first person she met was not the 4th prince. As soon as this idea came up, the eldest princess immediately felt stunned. He shook his head and cut off this thought that shouldn't exist. When he looked at Shen Jian again, there was a little panic in his eyes. See this? Shen Jian suggested, Sister-in-law, I've worked hard on you just now. Let me massage your head to alleviate the influence of the supernatural. Said. Shen Jian walked over. No, no need, I'll just take a nap and be fine. The eldest princess panicked and refused. Be terribly upset. In just a few days, she actually started to compare her husband with her brother-in-law, and felt that her husband was inferior. I don't know how her thoughts will change if she stays here any longer. She decided. After her trip to the east, she dealt with the sacred ruling as quickly as possible and stopped seeing the fourth prince. Sister-in-law, what are you thinking about? I told you that I will bless you and brother Wang, and I will not interfere in your relationship. I just can't bear to see you suffer. Shen Jian pretended to be sad. The movement was extremely powerful, and he came behind the eldest princess Iniya without any explanation. He helped her sit on the sofa and placed both hands on her temples. 5 fingers exerted force at the same time and pressed lightly. Wisps of yin energy are injected into it. Caught off guard. The eldest princess Iniya made a seductive hum. The voice is charming and tingling. Even though it was Shen Jian, his movements also paused slightly. The strangeness in his eyes deepened. The shouts of this good sister-in-law are so exciting. This good voice is wasted just for talking. Should try some swallowing, blowing, sucking, calling in all aspects. Thinking. The eldest princess also reacted. Her pretty face was suddenly covered with clouds. Covering his face. It was as if it was hard to say anything, and I was ashamed. Shen Jian said calmly, Sister-in-law, express yourself boldly if you feel comfortable. Don't suppress yourself too much. In front of me, you can show your truest self. No matter what, I will not dislike you. Finished. Shen Jian continued to massage. Knead, rub, push and tap on the temples. Following Shen Jian's movements, the princess also hummed rhythmically. It's just that it's the kind with one hand covering your mouth. While humming, he showed an expression of pleasure mixed with confusion. He seemed to be wondering where the fourth prince learned the massage skills. So comfortable too. Especially the eyes that were tired due to excessive use of supernatural powers seemed to be nourished by the sweet spring at this moment and became dazzling again. Just one time. Just enjoy this once. She kept telling herself to keep a distance from the fourth prince, her nominal brother-in-law, and not to cross the line. Princess Iniya. Current status, comfortable, ashamed, relaxed, nervous, contradictory. Favorability, 51, familiar. The next day. The central city of Winter City. Conference room building. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory was notified and came to attend the meeting jointly held by the 8 directors. As for the content, it is naturally related to the decision made by the second prince. He walked like a dragon and a tiger, and with every step he took, there would be a bloody footprint on the ground. This is his supernatural power. Wherever the bloody footprints go, he can teleport away at any time. He thought it was prudent, but other nobles seemed to think he was making a fuss out of a molehill, fearing death to the extreme and going to the extreme. You also need multiple insurances on your own property. To this, he didn't care. Because he is the largest nobleman in the East and a hereditary duke, he is the largest here. Your Majesty the Duke. On the way to the conference building, Earl Ren seemed to have just arrived and greeted him respectfully. While bending down, the cross on his neck swayed slightly. The Grand Duke of the East was a little surprised. When did you convert to Alim Temple? Count Ren. Hear this. He showed an expression that didn't know whether he was crying or laughing. Leaving resentfully. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory was puzzled, but he didn't think much about it. Soon. Right in front. 2 more figures came into view. It was Earl Morgan and Earl Jarov. The 2 of them had a bruised nose and swollen face, and they were supporting each other, looking like brothers in distress. More importantly, he found that the 2 earls also had wooden crosses hanging around their necks. He slowly typed a question mark. Has Elim Temple's business expanded to this extent? Get a cross for every purchase. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyu Buletin Chigwa. Chapter 842. The Grand Duke of the East is walking in the meeting castle. The confusion on his face only increased. Believers in the Elim Temple are indeed spread all over the kingdom's continent. Whether it is the four major realms or the remote high seas, there are believers in the glorious ghosts and gods. The East Territory is naturally no exception. But, as the 10 most powerful directors in the East, and as a group of beings closest to the level of ghosts and gods, they clearly know that belief in glorious ghosts and gods is not a good thing. The royal family of the Eli Empire allowed the development of the Temple of Elim. On the surface, it looked like the coexistence of royal power and divine power and friendly exchanges. But in fact, the royal family was eager to destroy all churches and temples so that the royal power would dominate. Under such circumstances, they, the largest nobles in the Eastern Territory, cannot openly stand on the side of the Elim Temple in order to avoid suspicion. Otherwise, no matter how weak the royal family's control over this place is, the Iron Cavalry will march all over the Eastern Territory. The Grand Duke of the East was puzzled. Had Earl Wren's group had their brains kicked by a donkey? How dare you openly carry the temple's religious items? If this was discovered by the second prince, he would choose to report it to the royal family. No. The problems of this group of people must be pointed out at the board meeting to ensure Dongfang's position. With this thought, the Grand Duke of the East quickly entered the conference room. On the round table, there were 10 people sitting in total. Earl Wren, Earl Morgan, Earl Jarov, Earl Redhair, Marquis of Raging Lion, Marquis of Gold and Silver, Marquis of Pain. 6 earls and 3 marquises, 9 in total. The remaining person sat calmly in the first row down from the front seat. His blonde hair and golden eyes symbolized his status as a prince of the Eli Empire. His handsome features were full of arrogance and were embroidered with gold and silver threads. He was wearing exquisite clothes, with a ruby the size of a pigeon egg pinned to his collar, and his wrists were each decorated with 2 emeralds. The whole person looked extremely luxurious. It is His Highness the Second Prince of the Eli Empire. The Grand Duke of the East nodded slightly towards the other party. Then he turned his attention to the entire audience. Just as he was about to raise his objections to the cross issue, he suddenly caught a glimpse of the 3 marquis on his left and right hands with a cross hanging around their necks. When he typed this question mark, it was not that he had a problem, but that he felt that the other party had a problem. Damn it! What are you doing on horseback? It's okay for a group of earls to do this. The 3 of you are marquises and ghosts and gods. Looking at the entire kingdom and continent, you are also at the top. Even if you are facing the glorious ghosts and gods, you do not have no right to speak. But you guys with thick eyebrows and big eyes actually hang up the faith cross of Elim Temple? What? Are you tired of being a noble and are you ready to become a believer? Gan. What on earth is it? No reason. The Grand Duke of the East had a bad feeling in his heart. The blood-red pupils kept scanning over the 3 marquises of Furious Lion, Jinyin, and Pain. It seems to be saying, you are playing tricks on me on purpose, right? Marquis Pain. A smile uglier than crying appeared on his face. He wanted to say something, but he swallowed his words after thinking about the gift package of death that Shen Jian said before. He no longer looked at the eyes of the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory. So does everyone else. Some raised their heads, some wiped cold sweat, some lowered their heads, some looked away, but no one dared to take off the cross. For a while, the atmosphere fell into an eerie silence. The eyes of the Grand Duke of the Eastern region were even more different. Something is wrong. The current situation is really wrong. He knew this group of directors, and because of this, he knew that the attitude of this group of people did not look like they were wearing the cross voluntarily, but rather as if they were forced to do so. But who in the Eastern Territory has the ability to force 9 nobles, the lowest of whom are top ghost kings, to volunteer? The thought changed. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory also swallowed his words, and then changed the subject and said, after several days of decision-making, you should have made your own judgment. Now we will vote on the strategy for the Southern Territory proposed by His Highness the Second Prince with a show of hands. As a Duke, I will set an example first and agree to the Second Prince's proposal. Finished. He looked at the others. Under normal circumstances, as long as he raises his hands to vote on his decision first, other directors will maintain the same opinion as him. After all, their interests are aligned. As for the southern border, the eastern border has a lot to offer. First of all, the Southern Territory is right next door to the Eastern Territory, making it easy to infiltrate or lurk. Secondly, the fourth prince occupied the Southern Territory, deprived the nobles of their interests, and his ambition to become the master of the Southern Territory was disliked by the nobles. No nobles wanted to see a prince who usurped the interests of the nobles come to power. Finally, the second prince had reached a certain agreement with him and would give a large amount of benefits to the Eastern Territory. In this way, this made him choose to support the second prince. The other side. The second prince's face also showed a bit of sinisterness. In order to impress the largest duke in the East, he spent a lot of effort and promised to make the East completely autonomous after he ascended the throne, which indirectly caused the Eli Empire to lose a piece of territory. But he doesn't care. As long as they can win the king's trial, giving up the Eastern Territory is not an unacceptable reality. Moreover, he had no other choice. After learning that his fourth brother, known as the Prince of Waste, occupied Eagle City and was about to become the Lord of the South, he almost went crazy. He didn't understand how his fourth brother, who had been bullied by him since childhood, managed to become a loser. He also heard a lot of speculations about the fourth prince. For example, the fourth prince's impression of being a playboy and incompetent was just an act. He had already secretly made some primitive accumulation, and was just waiting for the time to be right to become a blockbuster. To this, he didn't believe it. He didn't believe that the fourth brother who had been bullied by him since he was a child and who didn't even dare to look up at him had such forbearance and ambition. He suspected that there were traces of other organizations behind the fourth prince. The so-called Lord of the Southern Territory is just a puppet pushed to the forefront. What he has to do now is to muddy the waters in the Southern Territory and let this mysterious organization reveal clues. In this matter, he is very confident. After all, the Grand Duke of the East has publicly supported him, and even if the other directors have criticisms, they will not openly oppose him. This was what he was thinking a second ago. The next second, his face froze. Because after the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory voted with a show of hands, the remaining 9 directors bowed their heads in silence. What this means is already obvious. 9 of them disagreed. What's happening here? The second prince was a little confused. Although he has been focusing on attacking the Duke of the East during this period, he has also been in contact with other people, and it seems that he has not done anything to offend these directors, right? Why don't any of these people agree? The one who had such doubts was the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory himself. At this time, there was already a trace of sweat on his back. Eccentric. So weird. From the moment he arrived in the conference room, everything was wrong. The silence of the 9 directors now magnifies this unusual point to the extreme. At this time, a ghostly voice sounded. 9-1, the decision is not passed. Now, let's start the second proposal. The words fell. Go to the first position at the other end of the round table. A figure suddenly appeared and sat on it. The visitor had the same blonde hair and golden eyes as the second prince, and a smile appeared on his handsome and clear facial features. The blood-stained hemp rope stretched on the wrist rose up, seeming to express the emotions of its owner. This moment, the whole place was dead silent. Until the second prince's pupils shrank, he stood up suddenly, and said in horror, fourth brother. Why are you here? His tone could not conceal his shock. Almost growled. Supernatural fluctuations escaped uncontrollably, expressing his unease at the moment. At the board meeting of the Eastern Noble Masonic Association, the fourth brother of the Southern Realm suddenly appeared here, showing an arrogant and scornful attitude. This is so unusual. He was completely different from the fourth brother in his memory. Make him lose his mind. Thoughts in confusion. Then he heard Shen Jian open his mouth and said quietly, the second proposal, show of hands, kick the second prince out of the East. Who is in favor? Who is against? Say it. The second prince saw that the 9 directors who had been silent before, whether they were counts or marquises, all raised their hands immediately, as if they were afraid that if they were slow to raise their hands for a second, they would suffer unimaginable torture. That moment, his face turned green. Grass. I bet you guys have already been subdued by the fourth prince. When did this happen? How come I don't know anything about riding a horse? You must have done a great job in keeping things confidential. It's better to be an aristocrat than just go undercover. Just thinking about it? He looked sharply at the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory. There was strong expectation in his eyes. The Duke of the East has a veto power. As long as the Duke uses this power, this so-called proposal will not be established. Moreover, he had already promised so many conditions, and he did not believe that the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory could resist such doubts. As expected. On the first seat at the other end, the Grand Duke of the East stared at Shen Jian across from him with a gloomy expression. You bribed other directors, but only left me out. Are you looking down on me? Just as he was about to use his veto power to make the fourth prince's plan fail, the next second, Shen Jian said quietly, Grand Duke, you have to think clearly, the 9 directors of your East Territory are already on my side, even if you accept my proposal, the situation will not change. Can you veto this matter or other things? I can even let this group of people support the Southern Territory unconditionally and evacuate the Eastern Territory. Hear this. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory paused. He looked at the other 9 people in disbelief. No. I originally thought that you were just bribed by the fourth prince, but now that it sounds like you mean, you are supporting the fourth prince unconditionally. The kind that can even give away its own benefits? Emma. What are your weaknesses that have been exploited? Do you need to compromise like this? 9 directors. The corners of their mouths twitched together. He lowered his head in shame. It's so insulting. These 4 princes didn't save any face for them. They have never suffered this kind of shame since they became ghosts. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory saw this. A sentence comes to mind, don't be afraid of opponents who are like gods, but be afraid of teammates who are like pigs. I originally wanted to take off with the entire Eastern Territory, but I never thought that my home would be stolen. Xiaojia's teammates were instigated to rebel, and the springs were blocked by the enemy. End of chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shiyu Bulletin Chigua. Chapter 843. Chapter 835. I was once extremely angry. At this time, the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory was in a dilemma. Just as the fourth prince said, He has already instigated the rebellion of the other 9 directors of the East Territory and can intervene in the affairs of the East Territory at any time. He does not need to do anything more. He only needs to ask the 9 directors to hand over their respective properties and take control of everything they own. He opposed the decision, and within a few months, the Eastern Territory was completely in chaos. In order to support a prince whose outcome is not decided, the price of gambling the entire Eastern Territory is too high. But the promise of the second prince is not unattractive. Once the second prince comes to power, all the autonomy of the Eastern Territory will belong to them. This means that if the Eastern Territory becomes independent, even if they establish a new kingdom on their own, the royal family has no right to interfere. For a while, the Grand Duke of the East showed an uncertain expression on his face. He looked at the second prince on his left. At this moment, the second prince's eyes were about to burst, and his otherwise good facial features were full of ferociousness and distortion. He stared at the fourth prince, as if he wanted to eat him alive. He had no princely dignity at all, but instead, like a gambler who can't afford to lose, he is guilty of sex. On the other hand, the fourth prince who was directly opposite him had his lips curled up, as if he was watching a good show. There was no trace of worry in his expression. It seemed that whether he objected or not, it would not affect the situation. Between the two of them, it was clear at a glance whether they were high or low. At this time, a voice suddenly sounded in the head of the Grand Duke of the East. It was Marquis Payne. "Grand Duke, please obey. His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince is suspected of being a legendary world-destroying ghost and god." Grand Duke of the East. His pupils widened. He turned his gaze to Marquis Payne in disbelief. Destroy world-level ghosts and gods. What a joke. The only known world-destroying level ghost and god in the entire Yili Empire is the glorious ghost and god. It is not a simple world-destroying level ghost and god, but a ghost and god that has reached an unimaginable state. Besides, looking at the entire kingdom continent, world-destroying ghosts and gods are completely disconnected. Now tell him, the fourth prince is the world-destroying level? It's noisy. He stared at Marquis Payne, as if to say, "The way you look at me, do I look like an idiot?" In desperation, Marquis Payne could only tell everything that happened yesterday. The eyes of the Grand Duke of the Eastern region became even wider. "I couldn't come back to my senses for a long time. I just felt that the stool under my butt was getting prickly. Make him restless. I can't wait to use my supernatural power now to move to the farthest place where the bloody footprints are, so that I can stay away from this living ancestor." It was too scary to destroy 3 ghosts and gods at once, leaving them with no strength left to resist. Even he didn't have the ability. I am afraid that only the glorious ghosts and gods can have such strength. Look at it this way. To say that the fourth prince is suspected of being a world-destroying ghost and god is a bit conservative. Think of this. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory no longer hesitated. He also raised his hand and said righteously, "I also agree with this proposal." The words fell. All the directors present breathed a sigh of relief. Only the second prince froze suddenly and fell back to his seat, his eyes becoming dull. "My brain is even buzzing. Lost. Did he lose just like that?" Being taken out of the Eastern Territory means that even his original territory has been reclaimed, and a prince who has lost his territory will automatically lose the qualification to participate in the king's trial. He never imagined that the territory he had worked so hard for almost 2 years would lose everything because of a word from the fourth prince. He couldn't accept this fact. He couldn't even accept that he would be the first to be eliminated in the king's trial. "Damn it, you loser, why did you eliminate me? How could you, a loser who didn't even dare to look up at me before, beat me?" The second prince made a ferocious face and roared. As if out of control, he rushed forward. The target is naturally Shen Jian. The next second, the second prince was held down. His hands were pressed behind his back, and he was lying on the ground. And the one holding him down was naturally Marquis Payne at the next table. "Let me go. I am the second prince of this country. What qualifications do you have to restrict the actions of a prince?" The second prince struggled desperately. "The supernatural beings belonging to the top ghost king are sweeping wildly." Unfortunately, the one holding him down was a ghost, and his struggle was destined to be useless. As if he also wanted to understand this, the second prince raised his head hard, stared at Shen Jian with red eyes, and roared, "Fourth, if you have the guts, compete with me, you loser, do you dare to face me?" Hear the words. Shen Jian glanced at the second prince. "Stand up." Looking down at the second prince from a high position, he said casually, "Now, it's you who can't raise your head and face me directly." Finished. Shen Jian was not in a good mood. Waving his hands, he said, "Throw him out of the Eastern Territory, and put up a plaque at every border of the Eastern Territory. It says on it, the second prince and dogs are not allowed to enter." Group of ghosts. They gasped. "Damn it! You know how to insult people." In the territory that the second prince originally operated, he wrote a sign stating that no entry was allowed, and even compared it with a dog. This was completely like pressing a prince's face to the ground and rubbing it. It's still the kind of friction. It is light to fight to the death. If it weren't for the fourth prince's order, they wouldn't even dare to carry it out. After all, this is undoubtedly a public slap in the face of the royal family. In other words, the fourth prince is also of royal blood, so it can be understood as a family matter, otherwise it would be a proper rebellion. Marquis Payne faithfully fulfilled this order. In this process, the second prince is almost crazy. There was a tendency for resentment to reach its limit and turn into evil spirits. Before leaving, Shen Jian thought for a while. The last words to the second prince. "I was so angry that I stayed angry for a whole day." The red-haired earl gave a nice wink. "Your Highness, what does this mean?" "That is to say, he is in a rage of incompetence." Shen Jian spread his hands. The words fell. Outside the conference room, there was a loud roar like a killing pig. "Ah! You really deserve to die." Group of ghosts. They were sweating profusely. This fourth prince has such a damn bad character. He never misses the opportunity to add insult to injury. I don't care about human affairs at all. For a long time, the conference room finally became quiet. All the directors looked at Shen Jian uneasily. By driving away the second prince and allowing the fourth prince to settle in the Eastern Territory, it can be said that they have been bound to Shen Jian. From then on, they will both prosper and suffer. They all wanted to know what the fourth prince would do next. And Shen Jian also agreed. "How is the situation in the north?" Hear this. The ghosts were shocked. Considering that Shen Jian is now the master of the southern and eastern territories, the fourth prince's intention is already obvious, to capture the northern territory. Think of this. They couldn't help but get excited. It seems that His Royal Highness the fourth prince's ambition goes far beyond this. His real purpose should be to control the four major territories at the same time. The northern territory is the next one, but it is not the last one. In the history of the Eli Empire, there has never been a time when the princes from the four realms of the kingdom have been unified during the king trial. If the fourth prince can really do it, he will become the most powerful crown prince in history, and it is absolutely certain that he will take the throne. Then, the Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory knew everything and said, "Your Highness, the situation in the Northern Territory is very complicated. Evil ghost attacks occur there all the year round, and the environment is relatively harsh. There are few ghosts living there, and few big nobles would choose to get involved in it. Therefore, the Northern Territory is the unified state is controlled by the Grand Duke of the North. If you want to get the North, the Duke of the Konya family is the key. If you convince him, the north can easily fall into your hands. But, the sixth princess is currently in the Northern Territory. With her extremely high reputation, she has gathered a large number of small nobles and civilians whose families have been destroyed by evil spirits. She occupies almost half of the sky in the Northern Territory, and has formed an alliance with the Grand Duke of the Northern Territory to fight against the evil spirits. The strongest line of defense. If you want to occupy the Northern Territory, the sixth princess is also a factor that cannot be ignored, and because of the harsh environment in the Northern Territory, it is not convenient to transmit news. The information I know was already a month ago. What is the situation in the Northern Territory now? I can't guarantee it. Furthermore, Her Royal Highness the Third Princess's Deep-Sea Devil Fleet seems to have the intention of landing in the north. As to whether it is true or not, there is no way to be sure. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory talked a lot in one breath. Apparently he had explained all the information he knew. Shen Jian pondered for a moment. In the south, nobles of all sizes were independent, in the east, the Freemasonry was founded, and in the north, one person ruled. This situation is even more special than in the east. After all, the royal family will not just watch a noble become the master of a realm. The result of this is that the royal family completely loses control of the northern realm, and there is no room for intervention. No matter how much the Eastern Territory behaves, at least they will not oppose the royal family on the surface. In the Northern Territory, the Duke can really listen to the instructions but not the announcement, and the royal family can't do anything about it. After all, the North also needs the Duke to resist the attack of evil spirits. As for the sixth princess, that is also a problem. Shen Jian clicked his tongue. The princes and princesses of the Eli Empire are all quite capable. It is not that he has not participated in the drama of seizing the heir in the Qing kingdom, but the treatment of the princes is obviously not as good as that in the Eli Empire. This king fighting trial seems to be to test the governance level, but in fact it gives the princes and princesses the power to organize an army and take over a large area. This is true for the deep-sea demon fleet of the three princesses, and it is also true for the defense line against evil spirits organized by the sixth princess. If it can become bigger and stronger, it will undoubtedly allow a vassal king to rely on his own troops and give the other party a chance to rebel. Thoughts are spinning. Shen Jian asked, the high seas where the three princesses are located is very close to the northern border. It's really not far. The most important thing is that there is a dock in the north, and the dock is connected to the high seas. Under normal circumstances, the Grand Duke of the North also needs to rely on merchant ships sailing at sea to replenish food and other resources, so most of the merchant ships on the high seas will go there. The Northern Territory trades, and the three princesses have unified the high seas and formed the deep-sea devil fleet. The relationship with the Northern Territory will be deeper than we imagined. The Grand Duke of the Eastern Territory explained. The outcome of today's king trial has become completely unknown. The fourth prince is still the undisputed number one candidate. But the three princesses should not be underestimated either. There is also an eldest prince who has the support of the Belchia family, one of the four holy families. His grandfather is also the Duke of the West, and each one is stronger than the other. No one knows the final outcome until the end. Very good. Shen Jian's face showed a bit of excitement. He wants to eat the Northern Territory and the high seas together. At that time, together with the three major territories, he will point his sword at the Western Territory and completely end this trial for the king. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yu Buletin Chi Gua. Chapter 844. After settling everything, Shen Jian chose to return to the southern border. First of all, the current situation in the Northern Territory is unknown. Even if he rushes there, he will be blinded. It is better to let the directors of the Eastern Territory explore the way first and get the information he needs first. Secondly, the good sister-in-law is no longer willing to act with him. After comprehensive consideration, Shen Jian chose to return. Nothing else. The north was there and he could go there at any time. As for the eldest Princess Aina Ya, the opportunity is fleeting. Once he rushes to the north and comes back, he may never have the chance to open the other person's heart and upgrade the relationship between the two to a lip-to-mouth friendship. On the road. The eldest Princess Aina Ya said with a complicated expression, "Fourth Prince, I can go back by myself. Aren't you planning on planning the northern border? Don't delay things because of me." Shen Jian smiled, "It's okay, sister-in-law, your affairs are the most important. I can't trust you to go back alone. Brother Wang is not here now, so naturally the responsibility of taking care of my sister-in-law can only be left to me," said. Shen Jian secretly dissed the eldest prince again. The eldest prince allowed his wife to travel long distances, and he escorted her throughout the journey, fearing for her safety. If there are too many such comparisons, even if the eldest princess is really more in love with her than Jin, she will subtly complain about her husband and have a strong impression of him. Hear the words. The eldest princess lowered her eyes. For Shen Jian, her senses are very complicated now. Especially after yesterday's massage and showing her side of herself in front of this brother-in-law, she was even more embarrassed. She was afraid that the other party would think that she was a loose woman, otherwise how could she make such a shameful sound? It was also at this time that she suddenly realized that Shen Jian already had a different identity in her heart. In some aspects, she even felt that the fourth prince was better than her husband. She also knew that this mentality was wrong. If she allowed it to go on, it would probably cause a big mistake for her and the fourth prince. So, only then did she choose to end this trip. But she didn't expect that the fourth prince would choose to go back with her. Obviously, the brother-in-law in front of him was still discussing matters related to the Northern Territory with the directors of the Eastern Territory this morning. He seemed to be trying to win the Northern Territory as soon as possible. The discussion was heated, but in the afternoon he chose to leave with her without hesitation. To be honest, it would be a lie to say that I am not impressed. If it were her husband who occupied the Western Territory, and she planned to return to the royal city at this time, in her extreme excitement, her husband might not even know whether she had left. It is even more impossible to escort her back the whole way. However, the fourth prince did it. This brother-in-law really put her in a very high position. But the more this happened, the more scared she became. I'm afraid that one day I will really be immersed in this tenderness and do something extraordinary. Immediately, she changed the subject and said, "Fourth prince, I have also heard your discussion. If you want to take over the north, you need to conquer the northern duke. However, in my impression, this northern duke is very bloody, decisive in killing, and temperamental. He's tough, he won't even obey the king's words. If you want to subdue him, your behavior in the East Territory won't work at all. I have an exclusive piece of information that may be useful to you." Speaking of which, the eldest princess, Ainaya, paused. She knew that her current behavior was tantamount to siding with the enemy. To be more serious, it was no different from betraying her husband. After all, the more territory the fourth prince occupies, the stronger his strength becomes. In the end, the western region may not be able to escape this fate. But she also wanted to repay Shen Jian's affection for her a little. Even if it's just once. The Northern Territory is dominated by Duke Kanggai's family. The Yongkang city built by him can be called the Great Wall of Evernight in the Northern Territory. Apart from the Duke, the Kanggai family has only one heir, and that is the former saint of Elim Temple. According to my information, the cause of death of the former saint of the temple is unknown. It is probably related to the current Saint Leia. If the cause of death of the former saint can be investigated, Duke Kangai's attitude towards you will be different. Now, as for whether you can convince the other party in the future, it depends on you, Your Highness. Hear this. Shen Jian was slightly startled. The only descendant of the Grand Duke of the North is the former saint of Elim Temple? Ah, this. What a coincidence. Shen Jian's eyes were strange. If he remembered correctly, he was the main culprit for the former saint's downfall. When he entered the Eli Empire copy for the first time, he came to the Holy City Cathedral. In search of the host of dragon energy, he went to the territory of a certain earl, where he met the earl who specialized in cultivating evil ghosts. I also learned from the other party that this place was just an experimental site, and the source behind it was the former saint of Elim Temple. The other party cultivates evil ghosts, uses them to do evil, and directs and performs tricks to purify evil ghosts, in order to establish her own reputation and truly become a saint in the temple. And in order to help Sister Leia, he handed over the information. He didn't understand what happened after that. But if you think about it, you know what will happen to this former saint. Only. Shen Jian did not expect that the Elim temple would not disclose the matter, thus making the death of the former saint a mystery. Think for a moment. Shen Jian's eyes showed a bit of thoughtfulness. The Grand Duke of the North is the father of this former saint, which is intriguing. He had always suspected that the technology of mass creating evil ghosts was not something that a saint could master. Previously, he thought that the former saint had received some kind of ghost inheritance, which recorded the supernatural means of creating evil ghosts. But now, there is one more possibility. The source of this supernatural method is related to the Northern Territory. As for whether it has anything to do with the Grand Duke of the North, there's no way of knowing. What's wrong? Seeing Shen Jian stunned, the princess said a little strangely. Shen Jian came back to his senses and said sincerely, "It's okay, sister-in-law's information has helped me a lot as expected. Sister-in-law, you still care about me." The eldest princess pursed her lips and said shyly, "What are you talking about? I'm just repaying you for helping me alleviate the supernatural influence. Don't think too much about it." "I understand, sister-in-law, don't worry, we are purely friends." Shen Jian blinked. Means unknown. In the middle of such a fight, the two returned to the southern border. Ghost scribe Kali Tyre has been waiting for a long time. Not seen for a few days. The flower of the Kali family has become the husband stone. When he saw Shen Jian coming back, he rushed over as soon as possible. His eyes suddenly fell on the two people who were talking and laughing, as if they were suspicious of something. But after thinking about it, I felt that this idea was too rebellious. No matter how unreliable the fourth prince was, he still had to take into account the reputation of the royal family. The rabbit hasn't eaten the grass on the edge of the nest yet. This is the eldest princess, his sister-in-law. Not to mention, if the fourth prince is unreliable, can the eldest princess still be unreliable? She was simply overthinking this. Scare yourself. Then, she asked the most crucial question. "Your Highness, over there in the eastern region." She looked a little worried. It seems that he is looking forward to it, but he also seems to be worried that his fantasy will be shattered. Shen Jian went to the Eastern Territory, which was a top-secret event. There are no more than one ghost in the entire Southern Territory knowing that the worst outcome would be for the fourth prince to be exposed and left behind in the Eastern Territory. The best outcome would be to instigate one or two of the directors to rebel and delay the Eastern Territory's attack on the Southern Territory as late as possible. This is already the greatest psychological expectation that Kali Tyr can think of. As for more, she couldn't even think about it. After all, the fourth prince has only been there for a few days. Even if the efficiency is high, it is impossible to achieve much. As Shen Jian walked, he said casually, From today on, you don't need to pay attention to the Eastern Territory anymore. This is already my territory. After hearing the first half of the sentence, Kali Tir immediately understood something and subconsciously said, "Your Highness, it is normal that you have not gained anything in the past few days. We try our best to be on guard, but we can also, The Eastern Territory is His Highness's territory? What's the meaning?" She was stunned when she heard the second half of the sentence. It felt like my brain received some incomprehensible content, and it shut down for a while. It literally means that I have occupied the Eastern Territory and eliminated the second prince. From today on, the Eastern Territory and the Southern Territory will be closely connected and will not be separated from each other. As soon as these words came out, Kali Til was completely stunned. Hold the grass. The Eastern Territory is unified? His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince has only been gone for a few days? In less than 5 days, it is a question whether they can find the 10 directors of Kedong realm, let alone unify them. Isn't this really a joke? She clearly remembered that His Highness said that he was only going to dissuade those directors from giving up their plans against the Southern Territory. She guessed that His Highness the Fourth Prince's dissuasion might not be serious, but she never thought that the so-called dissuasion meant taking down the Eastern Territory. 2. Wouldn't taking over the Eastern Territory be equivalent to dissuading these directors from targeting the Southern Territory? Think about it this way. It seems normal. Grass. That's normal. This is so humming abnormal. At this moment, as a man who had received a noble education and whose words and deeds were in line with the temperament of an upper-class aristocrat, Kali Tir stood still, his red and thin lips wide enough to stuff an apple. "Your Highness, am I really not dreaming?" the ghost secretary murmured. "His Royal Highness the Fourth Prince has become the master of the 2 major territories, the Southern Territory and the Eastern Territory? How long has it been since?" "Less than half a month." "Of course not." "Ah." Kali Til was beside herself with excitement. Staring at Shen Jian's handsome face that fit the dream of 900 million girls, she suddenly made a bold move. She stepped forward. Under the confused gazes of Shen Jian and the eldest princess, he brought his red lips closer and kissed the right side of Shen Jian's face. A beautiful lip-shaped mark was printed on the face. "Princess." Her expression changed slightly. The smile that had been overflowing all the way suddenly dropped a lot at this moment. Shen Jian also looked slightly surprised. This is a deep ghost land with a medieval background. It is considered a very bold act for a woman to kiss a man's face in public. Especially for nobles, this kind of behavior is not allowed. He didn't expect that the ghost secretary would be so bold. The other side. After the kiss, although there was shyness on Kali Tir's face, he still blinked his sapphire eyes and said boldly, "Your Highness, this is the tradition of our Kali family. Women of the right age can be the master of heroic deeds recognized by themselves. Offer your blessing, this blessing represents blessing." "So that's it?" Shen Jian glanced at the princess and accepted without blushing or heartbeat. At this time, a forced smile appeared on the face of the eldest princess. "Fourth prince, Miss Tir, I have something else to do, so I will leave first." Finished. Without waiting for Shen Jian's reply, he left quickly. What's wrong with the princess? Kali Tir felt a little strange. Maybe, I accidentally got jealous on the road. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 845. At the same time, when Shen Jian and the eldest princess rushed back to the southern border, there was an uproar in the eastern border. After all, a plaque has been erected at every border point in the east. Dogs and the second prince are not allowed to enter the country. The fourth prince's words. This plaque was placed in the most conspicuous position, and basically every foreign ghost who arrived in the east could see the words on it. The news spread like wildfire. This moment, the whole country was in an uproar. Whether it was the eastern border, the southern border next door, or the far north or west border, they all felt ridiculous. The Eastern Territory governed by the second prince refused the second prince's entry qualification and even put him in the same row as a dog. This was a blatant insult. What is even more shocking is that the fourth prince actually requested this plaque. How did the fourth prince do this? Why can he command the nobles of the eastern region to do such an insult to the royal family? Doubts kept emerging. The ghosts in the entire kingdom and continent are puzzled. This is also the time. There is news from the east. The eastern border noble Freemasonry has reached some kind of agreement with the fourth prince, and will fully support the fourth prince's career. The second prince was also kicked out of the eastern border, completely losing his qualifications for the king's trial, and became the first to be eliminated. Prince. As soon as the news came out, the ghosts were shocked. There was a boiling sound. Many ghosts have fallen into sluggishness. Damn it! They just slept for a while. Why did the situation in the kingdom change so much? There aren't even any signs of this. Doesn't this situation mean that the fourth prince has not only occupied Eagle City, but will soon become the lord of the Southern Territory, and even the Eastern Territory will also surrender? It is an unprecedented event for one person to enjoy two worlds. So awesome! This royal bloodline, which once left a stigma in the kingdom and was known as the representative of incompetent waste, occupied two realms in a short period of time, leaving his brothers and sisters far behind. It can be said that the words are not surprising and will not stop until death. It's simply outrageous to open the door for outrageous things. It's so outrageous. What has the fourth prince been doing secretly in the past 10 years? He was able to instigate all the members of the eastern border noble Freemasonry under the eyes of the second prince. This is much more difficult than violently occupying Eagle City. Good boy, I'm afraid the second prince's face will turn green. The first prince to be eliminated, just with this title, he is destined to be unable to hold his head high in the future. I was the only one who thought that the fourth prince took away his people in front of the second prince. Isn't this a kind of NTR? What exactly happened upstairs? I have such a profound sense of déjà vu. Within the kingdom continent, such topics are discussed all the time. In addition to pity for the second prince, there was only admiration for the fourth prince in his words. Although this metaphor is not appropriate, it is enough to illustrate how difficult it is to instigate rebellion against the nobles of the Eastern Territory. There is no primer on both floors. Certainly. There was another group of people among them. After learning the news, they rushed to the East Territory as soon as possible. And I saw the notice board at each border. Click. A ghost with miniature eyes on its head that looks like a camera is taking photos of two ladies from aristocratic families. And what was photographed together was naturally the internet celebrity check-in attraction, the second prince plaque. The other side. Such a lively scene does not affect the operation of the Southern Duke's mansion. Except for the eldest Princess Ania, who left inexplicably, the ghost scribe Kali Tir's expression seemed very high. Intimately reporting on the current situation beside Shenji Unjian. Your Highness, since the Eastern Territory has been unified, is it necessary to expand the production scale of flintlock muskets? If the Eastern Territory fully supports it, the manufacturing of flintlock muskets will enter a stage of rapid development. I have calculated that it only takes 1 day to produce them. With more than 1,000 flintlock guns, we can annex the 4 realms in less than a month. Kali Til's eyes were shining. Shining with azure luster. What she said was already a conservative estimate. If she were bolder, she felt that even the royal city would not be able to reach the fourth prince's army. If this was an era of vying for power, the fourth prince would have already qualified to defeat everyone and establish a country and claim the title of king. Well, I'll leave this to you. Shen Jian nodded slightly. Now capturing the northern border and the high seas has become the next stage of the task. The evil ghosts in the north and the deep-sea devil fleet on the high seas are all tough. He needs more power that can crush an army of 30 to 50,000 or 100,000 troops. In particular, the Six Princesses deep-sea devil fleet occupies the entire high seas. They are all ghost pirates under their command, and their number is probably about the same if not 100,000. Such an army of pirates is unmatched by the current gun and artillery teams. But coupled with the power of the Eastern Territory, the situation is different. He was looking forward to this. Modern hot weapons fight against cold weapons, which is undoubtedly a dimensionality reduction attack. If he had a gun team of 100,000 people, the entire Ili Empire's military strength would not be enough to feed bullets. By the way, how much do you know about the Duke of the North? As if thinking of something, Shen Jian asked. The Grand Duke of the North, Kali Tyre frowned. I don't know much. I learned most of it from my brother. I heard that this Grand Duke has a cold temperament, stays away from strangers, and never takes the initiative. I made friends with other nobles, and although there is a castle in the royal city, I haven't lived there even once throughout the year. And I heard that when His Majesty the King intended to betroth the princess to the other party, he was rejected. The Grand Duke of the North refuted His Majesty's words in person and turned around and left. Although Your Majesty was furious, he did not take any punitive measures. When I was working as a clerk in the palace, people often said that the Northern Territory was no different from independence, except that it had not established a country. The royal family's orders could not be passed down without the Grand Duke's permission. Kali Tyre said mysteriously. Shen Jian was thoughtful. The value of this information is not high, and it is basically the same as what the princess said. However, it is enough to infer from this that the terror level of the Grand Duke of the North is very high, and it is very likely that he is infinitely close to the world-destroying level, and may even be about to enter the world-destroying level. Otherwise, how could the royal family tolerate a duke like this? Where are the six princesses? Shen Jian said casually. This person's level of mystery is not much worse than that of the Grand Duke of the North. What I have heard the most is that the sixth princess is naturally smart and showed her talents at a very young age. However, in the royal city, it is almost rare to see this princess. I once met the sixth princess when she entered the social world. She stayed quietly in the corner and seemed out of place with everything. But at that time, His Majesty the King doted on her, so her impolite behavior disappeared. People should investigate deeply. Hear this. Shen Jian was surprised. Then why did she go to the northern border where the environment is the most difficult? This was requested by the sixth princess herself. In fact, according to normal circumstances, it is you, Your Highness, who should go to the north. However, the sixth princess took the initiative to request to go to the north, so His Highness was allowed to stay in the south. Shen Jian looked strange. When he learned that the environment in the north was harsh and there were evil spirits invading, he thought that this was where the fourth prince belonged. Unexpectedly, his guess was really right. It's just that someone went to the north for him. Do you think the fourth prince couldn't survive in the north, so he chose to switch? Or is there something in the north that attracts this naturally intelligent sixth princess? Shen Jian became a little curious. Ended the conversation. Shen Jian opened the game panel. The panel still stays on branch task 5, which is unify the southern territory. To this, Shen Jian ignored it. The completion of branch tasks is incidental, and the main task is the focus. Even if the branch line stays at the unification of the southern border stage, it will not affect his ability to annex the 4 major realms and end the king trial ahead of schedule. It's a pity that the task rewards accumulated by completing branch tasks are. But this pales in comparison to unlocking the Azura path, one of the 6 paths of reincarnation. It belongs to the type that is tasteless to eat and a pity to throw away. Subsequently, Shen Jian looked at the chat interface again. In the past few days, there has not been much communication between Western players. The end of the news was still 5 days ago. A white 5-star player with the ID Adolf spoke up, looking for players who knew how to make modern firearms. There were many responses, 6 in total. 6 out of 50 players know how to make modern firearms, and this probability is equally astonishing. It should not be difficult to develop a flintlock gun, or a revolver that is more advanced than a flintlock gun. Think about it this way. Shen Jian's face showed a bit of amusement. The reason why the flintlock gun is useful is that the bullets fired are stained with the blood of world-destroying ghosts and gods, as well as the mixed blood of ghosts and gods, and a few drops of his ghosts and gods' blood are also added to it. Only then can they have the ability to kill top ghost kings. In fact, even if it is not a bullet but a kitchen knife, a wooden stick stained with such blood can still possess the supernatural power of killing the top ghost king with one knife and knocking to death the top ghost king with one stick. Therefore, this group of Western players is doomed to fail. He wanted to see how desperate they felt when they wasted their time and energy to create a firearm that couldn't even defeat the Ghost King. Presumably, that scene was quite relieving. Thinking. Shen Jian withdrew his gaze. Think about it. Walked out of the study. Came to the bedroom upstairs. We successfully found the room of the eldest princess's sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, can I come in? Shen Jian opened the door. He whispered like a thief. Princess. You came right in, why are you asking me? If she hadn't known that this uncle was so informal, she would have kicked him out long ago. After all, there is nothing gentlemanly about breaking into a lady's room. Not to mention she still has a family. What are you here for? The eldest princess said coldly. The sound is neither salty nor bland. Shen Jian glanced away. At this time, the good sister-in-law had already changed into women's clothes again, wearing a halter neck satin dress. She looked like she had just taken a shower. There were still some water stains on her pale skin, and her hair had not been dried. She just let it go. Her long, wet hair sticks to her body. And she was leaning against the window, her 2 milky white long legs naturally stretched out, reflecting the alluring light under the sunlight. Beautiful but a little lonely. Shen Jian's eyes moved. Princess Aini Ya. Current status, angry, aggrieved, conflicted, scared. Favorability, 57, familiar. A strange color flashed in Shen Jian's eyes. 57 points of favorability, which is only 3 points away from the 60 points of the ambiguous stage. He could easily make up for this good impression. In other words, the feelings are heating up, maybe at this time. From pure friendship to lip friendship. From gentleman's friendship to Guanbao's friendship. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Yubuletin Chigua. Chapter 846. Favorability, 57, familiar. Seeing the favorability value on the favorability panel approaching 60 points, Shen Jian's eyes flashed with waves. When the favorability reaches 60 points and enters the ambiguous stage, you can basically not engage in any intimate behavior, otherwise it will be lost in minutes. But once it exceeds 60 points and enters the ambiguous stage, unless the behavior is really greasy and low-key, the other party's tolerance will be several levels higher than before. He had already experimented with this. Think about it. Shen Jian stepped forward. Knowing this, he asked, Sister-in-law, what's wrong with you? The eldest princess said nothing. He raised his head and glanced at the uncle who was nearby. His eyes fell on Shen Jian's face imperceptibly. When he didn't see that damn red lip mark, his face became a little relieved. But the entanglements and contradictions in her heart still made her feel confused. She thought a lot. Then her emerald-like eyes bloomed with a bright halo, her red lips parted, and she said against her will, Miss Tyre is the daughter of the Duke of the Cali family, one of the 4 holy families. Regardless of her identity, status, or achievements, in terms of assistance, they are all very matched with you, the 4th prince, and this is the most suitable candidate for you, your highness. As for me, your highness should forget about me. Shen Jian. The corner of his mouth twitched slightly. Since you want to make things happen for me and others, then don't use your supernatural powers to tell whether it's a lie or not. What is the difference between this and the 300 taels of silver here? Shen Jian couldn't laugh or cry. As a veteran, he naturally knows what the eldest princess is thinking about now, and what blessings she wishes for him are all against her will. If there is even the slightest hesitation, there may be no possibility for him and this good sister-in-law. Immediately. Shen Jian didn't hesitate for a second. He blurted out, sister-in-law, what are you talking about? I only have feelings for Miss Tyre as a monarch and a subject. No one can replace my sister-in-law's position in my heart. He lied. But he didn't panic. Princess Ainaya's supernatural power affects the soul and measures the fluctuations of the soul. Liars, the frequency of soul fluctuations is different and cannot be changed by the will of the main body. However, he is the lord of the 6th palace of the underworld, King Bian Cheng. He has the talent of ghosts and gods. The soul is in his hands, and even its shape can be changed, not to mention the soul fluctuations that cover up lies. If he wanted to, even if he said that the king of the Eli Empire was his son, the princess would not be able to detect that he was lying. The eldest princess's eyes flashed, the truth was spoken. This moment, her depression disappeared for some unknown reason. There was only an inexplicable joy left in my heart. Of course she knew that this kind of emotion was wrong and would make her sink deeper and deeper, but she just couldn't help it. The other side. Sensing the change in the eldest princess's mood, Shen Jian knew that it was his turn. Then, he began to play the role of the tragic second male lead, pretending to be sad. Sister-in-law, you promised me that you would let me stay by your side. Now that you are setting me up with someone else, don't you want me to stay by your side? I don't know anything about it. No, the only requirement is to watch you silently without disturbing you and brother Wang. Do you want to deprive me of even this power, sister-in-law? As soon as this sentence came out, the eldest princess suddenly became confused. In her eyes, the 4th prince is a flamboyant and confident royal heir who can look down on the kingdom and the mainland and has the majesty of a king. His character is destined not to show weakness. But now, because of her words, the master who unified the southern and eastern territories showed a different personality. This was another side that only she could see. Your Highness, I haven't thought about it that way. I just need some time to properly handle the relationship between us. I am your queen's wife after all. Speaking of which, there was melancholy in the princess's tone. Sister-in-law, you are thinking too much. There is really nothing between us. The ghost of the heart, everything is dirty. As long as we have a clear conscience, no matter what others say, it is just slander. Presumably, the same is true for brother Wang. Thought. Shen Jian instills unorthodox ideas. Before the good sister-in-law could react, she spoke again, Sister-in-law, I see that your hair has not been dried. This can easily lead to physical problems. Let me help you dry it, said. Without giving the princess a chance to refuse, Shen Jian had already taken action. He put his sister-in-law's wet long hair in his hands and stroked it gently from top to bottom. A bright beam of light in his hand turned into a tiny blazing sun, making his palms hot and warm. Just use the warmth in your hands to dry your wet long hair little by little. The eldest princess looked sideways. Looking at the reflection in front of the window, Shen Jian's eyes gently stroked her long hair, as if he were stroking some rare treasure. It was so gentle and warm that her heart sank. Even her husband, the eldest prince, has never done this kind of thing for her. Her eyes gradually blurred. Favorability add 1. Favorability add 1. Favorability add 1. Suddenly, the eldest princess said out of nowhere, "Why didn't I meet you earlier? As long as I'm one day earlier than him, maybe." To hear. She said no more. His expression became even more lonely. Then he shook his head as if he was self-deprecating, and smiled forcefully, "It's nothing. Fourth prince, just think that I am complaining. It's time for you to leave. I am your queen's wife after all. If you stay here for too long, you will make me angry." The servants of the duke's palace misunderstood. Shen Jian said nothing. Instead, he glanced at the favorability panel. Princess Aini Ya. Current status: melancholy, worry, conflict, and excitement. Favorability: 63, ambiguous. See this. Shen Jian's heart moved. A low and sad voice spoke. "If I could start all over again, I would definitely give up everything and compete with Brother Wang once, even if I use an egg against a stone." Hear the words. The eldest princess paused. This time, she turned her head slightly and looked behind her. Her bright emerald eyes looked at Shen Jian behind her in such a complex manner. The two looked at each other. This moment, the atmosphere seemed extremely ambiguous. There seemed to be a flash of fire in the air. Shen Jian said sincerely, "Sister-in-law, you are so beautiful." Said. He tentatively lowered his head a few centimeters. This is an attempt. Women are emotional. No matter how cold a woman is, she will be moved when she hears love words, but people who are not good at expressing will not show an obvious smile. And when love reaches a deep level, even if it is only for a moment, only by seizing this opportunity can one break through the limitation of insufficient favorability and achieve intimate behavior. At the moment, what Shen Jian wants to seize is such an opportunity. As expected. When he made an obvious move of leaning down, the princess seemed to be in a daze, looking at him in confusion, with a trace of love in her eyes. The next second, she seemed to acquiesce and closed her eyes obediently. See this. Shen Jian felt his blood boiling all over his body. Without any extra thought, he kissed the red lips that belonged to the queen's wife. Well. Shen Jian was not anxious. Just kissing the lips softly. Prepare to open up the heart of this queen's sister-in-law little by little. Let's have a battle of words. Certainly. He doesn't have any bad intentions. I just want to leave some good memories for this good sister-in-law. He didn't know whether the married life in the medieval setting was excessive, but he knew that the eldest princess and the eldest prince in front of him spent less time together and separated more, and they were princes, so they definitely had never experienced the taste of verbal quarrels. This is definitely a novel experience. However, just when Shen Jian was about to pry open the shell teeth, the eldest princess, who was in a trance and confused, finally reacted and noticed some shameful thoughts of her brother-in-law behind her, and pushed him away hard. A face full of blushes. My heart seemed to be beating out of my chest. She made a mistake. In that situation just now, she unexpectedly closed her eyes. The fourth prince seemed to have received some kind of instruction and took the initiative to kiss her. It all seemed to fall into place. During this period, she even forgot that she was still the fourth prince's sister-in-law. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law, how is this possible? She was confused, panicked, and even more frightened. Fourth prince, didn't you say that we should have a clear conscience? What were you doing just now? Hear this. A trace of regret flashed in Shen Jian's eyes. He comforted, sister-in-law, I couldn't help it just now. I won't do it next time. No one will know about this matter unless we tell it. We are still honest and innocent, and we have a clear conscience. Princess. Her eyes widened. Everything has happened. You tell me that as long as we pretend we didn't see it, we will have a clear conscience and be innocent? Covering your ears and stealing the bell, right? In a daze. She didn't know what to do. Really? Pretending to be confused is the best way to deal with it? As long as she didn't tell or Shenjian didn't tell, no one would know that an immoral act had occurred between the brother-in-law and the sister-in-law in the Duke's mansion in the south. I need some quiet. The princess issued an order to expel the guests. He didn't dare to look at Shenjian's eyes. Because she knew that her expression at this time was not much better, full of spring, lingering love, and clouds all over her face. This can easily cause other people to misunderstand. The other side. Outside the princess's bedroom. A pair of eyes mixed with shock, horror, and disbelief were cast through the crack of the door, staring at the scene inside. The silver armor, the slightly slender body curve, the high ponytail, and the fact that she never leaves her body with a sword all illustrate her identity. These peeping eyes are none other than the princess's personal female knight. He has an ambiguous relationship with the eldest prince. At this moment, the female knight was dumbfounded. She just left for a while to report to the eldest prince that the eldest princess had returned and was chatting and laughing with the fourth prince. She didn't expect to see such a shocking scene when she came back. The eldest princess actually allowed the fourth prince to stroke her hair, and finally, she kissed the fourth prince in front of her. This is no longer something that can be explained by the good relationship between uncle and sister-in-law. The eldest princess betrayed the eldest prince. She couldn't imagine that the duke's daughter, who once made her jealous, envious, and hated, and now the princess, would do such an immoral thing. Even if she is jealous of Ainia becoming the princess of the eldest prince, at least the eldest princess is indeed the embodiment of holiness and nobility. But she never expected that such a woman would have an affair with her brother-in-law. First she was confused, and then a deep anger swept through her body. The high branch she dreamed of climbing was trampled upon by the princess. A man who cheated on his husband and was unclear about his brother. A man with evil intentions covets his eldest brother's wife and seduces his eldest sister-in-law. The two of you should be tied to the stake together and burned to death in the contempt of everyone. This moment. The female knight was angry and sneered again. She wants to expose their affair to the eldest prince, so that she can have the opportunity to replace him and become the new eldest princess. Then. She trotted out. She took out the human skin paper, opened her fingers, and was about to report the matter when a teasing voice sounded in her ears. Hey, I plan to write a short composition. Something strange is coming? Fortunately, I am the king of hell of the 10th palace. Author, Shi Buletin Chigua. Chapter 847. What little composition did you write? Let me see. When this somewhat joking voice sounded, the female knight who was hiding in a corner of the duke's mansion and was about to report the matter immediately felt her scalp explode. He felt as if the blood all over his body was frozen, and a chill shot straight from his toes to the sky. She turned around with difficulty. What he saw was the hateful face of the fourth prince. At this time, the fourth prince was looking at her teasingly, with a playful look in his eyes like a hunter looking at his prey. The next moment, within a tenth of a second, she unfolded her ghost realm and completely disappeared into the duke's palace. At the same time, she wrote down what she saw and heard on human skin paper as fast as she could in her life, hoping that the eldest prince could see the message. However, before she could react, the scarlet ghost realm occupied her sight. She had already used the ghost realm to teleport out of the duke's palace, but was back to where she was in the next second. The human skin paper in his hand has turned into a fallen leaf. The real human skin paper fell into the hands of the fourth prince in front of him. Tisk, you really want us brothers to kill each other. It's so vicious. Shen Jian grabbed the human skin paper and stood defenseless in front of the female knight. Then, he grabbed the female knight with his big hand and pinched the female knight who was infinitely close to the level of ghosts and gods. In an instant, a feeling of suffocation came over me. The female knight's cheeks turned red, and a hint of fear finally flashed through her inconspicuous eyes. She imagined many endings in which she was discovered to be the one exposed. And the current one is undoubtedly the most serious. Judging from the fourth prince's attitude, he obviously had no intention of letting her go, but chose to squeeze her to death to keep the secret. Judging from the increasing force on her neck, she probably wouldn't be able to hold on for 5 seconds before her throat was crushed and she died on the spot. She doesn't want to die. She has been striving to become a palace knight since she was a child. As an adult, she was successfully selected by the eldest prince because of her excellent results and became his personal knight. It can be said that she is the person who has been with the eldest prince for the longest time. Even the eldest princess does not know the eldest prince as well as she does. And she is not willing to be just a personal female knight. So under her active approach, the eldest prince successfully shifted part of his attention to her and began to chat with her casually. She thought she had a chance to become the princess. But the appearance of Ainaya took away the position of princess that originally belonged to her. Now, he was about to die on the spot. Why? Why could that woman already have an eldest prince, and still have an affair with the fourth prince, and be between the two best men in the empire? And she could only die here in obscurity? This time, fear, despair, and unwillingness completely occupied her heart. His eyes were full of weakness. At this time, the female knight suddenly found that the hand holding her neck loosened. Ahem. She lay on the ground, coughing violently and panting like a bereaved dog. I can tell from the look in your eyes that you don't want to die. Old God Shen Jian said, looking down at the second sister-in-law from a high position. Naturally, he would not kill the other party. This female knight is the key figure who completely caused the rift between the eldest princess and the eldest prince. If she wants to conquer the eldest prince's wife, she needs her help. Hear this. The female knight looked up and nodded hesitantly. She really didn't want to die. Once the computer crashes, you don't know when you want to wake up. It may be decades, hundreds of years, or forever. She was already infinitely close to the level of ghosts and gods, how could she want to die? If that's the case, then, climb over here. Shen Jian was neither sad nor happy, and said quietly as if giving an order. This time, the female knight hesitated longer. Teeth clenched. His body was shaking slightly. I don't know if it's fear or humiliation. But in the end, she climbed over. Because she knew that she had no room for bargaining. As long as the fourth prince did not want his affair with his sister-in-law to be exposed, he would never let her go. If you don't want to die, you can only do what the other person says. Shen Jian squatted down. The plate armor on the chest of the female knight was taken apart. The inner shirt was exposed. His palms were already grabbing at the collar, as if he wanted to rip it off. The female knight raised her head sharply, her face changed drastically, she mustered up her last bit of courage, and said tremblingly, Your Highness, the fourth prince, I am the eldest prince's son, and I am also one of your future queens-in-law. What you are doing is unacceptable to the world. Shameful. Shen Jian paused. Just when the female knight thought that Shen Jian's conscience was still intact, she saw Shen Jian showing an even more excited expression, I love my son the most. It's okay if you don't tell me, but I'll be even more excited when you tell me. Female knight. At this time, she suddenly remembered that she had just seen the two of them having an affair, and even the eldest princess dared to hook up with each other, so what could she, a sister-in-law who didn't even have a name, matter? What is the difference between saying that you are Mrs. Wang and telling a gangster that there is money here? Just thinking about it? A tearing sound. The undershirt was torn. Shen Jian looked around. Somewhat emotional. Unexpectedly, this female knight turned out to be the kind of person who hides herself deeply. I was wearing a battle armor before, which covered all the female features, and no traces could be seen at all. I didn't expect that when I took it apart, it would be so magnificent. Really? Some things, until the last layer of veil is torn off, you never know what kind of uproar it will cause. This female ghost is difficult to control. But what he likes most is to challenge things he cannot control. Then Shen Jian stood up. While admiring the beautiful scenery, he opened his mouth and said, "You have two choices now. First, let me crush you to death on the spot. Second, become mine. You hooked up with the eldest brother because you wanted to become the princess. When the eldest brother succeeds to the throne, you will be the mistress of this empire. But, the eldest brother already has a wife, and there is also a Belkia family standing behind you. It is impossible for you, right? Moreover, as long as I am here, it is impossible for the great king brother to ascend to the throne. No matter how hard you struggle, you can only get the position of a side princess. But I am different. I have unified the southern and eastern territories one after another, and the next step is the northern and western territories. The eldest prince you have placed high hopes on will soon roll back to the royal city in despair, powerless and furious. And I will be crowned king. Which side you choose is up to you to weigh." Shen Jian's voice kept ringing. Echoed in her ears. The female knight looked confused. She must have some feelings for the eldest prince. But this emotional foundation is bound to the fact that the eldest prince can ascend to the throne and become the master of the empire, and she will also share the honor and disgrace, and use the resources of the royal family to advance to the level of ghosts and gods. If not, then this little emotional foundation is not worthy of her loyalty to the death. And so far, the one with the greatest advantage in the king trial is undoubtedly the fourth prince in front of him. Even if the other party is doing nothing now. Once the 5-year period is up, the 4 princes who have unified the southern and eastern territories will become the undisputed winner, the crown prince of the Eli Empire, and the future king. Think about it this way. The female knight's expression became complicated and full of wavering. Shen Jian didn't speak either. Instead, he watched quietly. Until a moment. It was the female knight who raised her head again. Shen Jian was asked a question that he didn't expect. Can my status be compared with that of the eldest princess? Think about it. Shen Jian lifted her chin, slowly moved his palm down, caressed her neck and collarbone, and focused on her erect breasts. That depends on how proactive you are. Hear the words. The female knight looked at Shen Jian's eyes. Although there was shyness and bitterness on her face, she still said firmly, "From today on, I will be your sword, cutting through thorns and thorns for you." A cheeky smile appeared on Shen Jian's lips. "I hope you can serve as the sheath for my sword first." The female knight was indeed a female knight. She had practiced hooking up skills, and she immediately understood what Shen Jian meant. First he lowered his head shyly, and then slowly squatted down. At the same time, Western Territory. The eldest prince looked at the message with only a few words written on the human skin paper, and was a little confused. He had great trust in this personal female knight. Otherwise, he would not be allowed to escort the eldest princess to the southern border, and even the secret operations of monitoring the eldest princess would also be handed over to the other party. In his eyes, everyone here might betray her, but not this female knight. Not only because of his identity and status, but also because this female knight had a secret crush on him and wanted to marry him. Think of this. The eldest prince took back the worry in his heart. He probably felt that the authenticity of this information needed to be verified, so he didn't report it. With this thought, the eldest prince came to the underground of the Western Duke's mansion. This is a ghost craftsman's forge room. How is the research and development of the flintlock gun going? My fourth brother has already shown his fangs, and I am afraid that he will attack the western region soon. In the forge room, the 5-star player with the ID Adolf came out in disgrace and said excitedly, "Your Highness, we have preliminary developed the blueprints and will be able to actually create a flintlock gun in less than half a month. Not only the flintlock gun, we have also improved this supernatural weapon and designed a revolver that can fire multiple rounds. Its performance is many times better than the flintlock gun." Hear this. The eldest prince's eyes lit up. "Okay, if you can really create it and let me defeat the fourth prince's brother, the position of duke belongs to you." "Thank you, eldest prince." Adolf was equally excited. That's the position of a duke. Compared with this position, all 5-star players and the Western Holy See are rubbish. A king of the south emerged from the Dragon Kingdom and became the city lord of 3 game areas. He also gained a superior status in the dungeon here. But now, these are all rubbish. There is no comparison between the city lord in a thriller game and the duke in a deep ghost realm. Although the former is the supreme ruler, his overall strength is weaker than any of the 4 major realms in the Eli Empire, and the duke is the largest noble in the realm. As long as you give him some time, surpassing it won't be a problem at all. A bright future is beckoning to him.